Okay, perfect. So we'll get started with our webinar for today. Thank you everyone for coming out today. My name is Anna, and I will be leading you through our webinar. So this is an introduction to our Journey to DevOps Engineer training program, where we will provide a bit of background into DevOps, explain the surge in demand for DevOps engineers within IT that we've currently seen, as well as how we can get you into this highly demanded field. So just to start off with a bit of an introduction to our company, we are bCloud Ready, and we are a Toronto-based startup company that was founded in 2015, and we specialize in AI and cloud products. We also do consulting services, corporate training, and placement. So in a nutshell, one key area is that we work with people who are trying to break into the cloud and the DevOps field. So we help bring people into the market who are pursuing a tech career by providing training programs as well as placement. So they kind of go hand in hand. And this is because we hire people and do contract work ourselves. So we're always looking for skilled people. And in doing so, we do recognize a pattern in terms of people who have the skills and can get into the field, as well as those who may need a bit more experience and a bit of help transitioning into the field. So essentially, we help bridge that gap by providing training as well as a lot of experience, and then bring in placement opportunities. So for a bit of background regarding who we've worked with in the past as well as recently, we've worked with some amazing corporate clients in the States. So these companies include big names like you guys can see, Collabra, Wells Fargo, Capital One, Bank of America, Allstate, as well as Ericsson. So all of these companies are DevOps training clients. And so we can see that there is a lot of opportunity in the area and that a lot of big companies are looking into DevOps. And lastly, just to wrap up the bit of introduction to our company, I would like to introduce you guys to Shandin Kumar. So he's one of the founders of bCloud Ready, and he is a chief data architect and DevOps engineer. He has well over 15 years of experience within the industry. He's worked at some of the biggest names in Ontario and has managed multi-millionaire projects and has a lot of industry level knowledge about DevOps. So essentially, he is the person who will help us guide people into getting into DevOps and really knows the field inside and out. Okay, so just so that we understand the agenda for today, this will be about a 30-minute webinar or so. And so what we will go over is the current state of DevOps, why DevOps is so valuable to companies, as well as how you can become a part of it. So again, if you guys have any questions and you want something cleared up, just feel free to just type it into the chat as well as the Q&A, and I'll just get through the questions most likely near the end of the webinar. So feel free to ask away any questions you guys have. And yeah, so we'll just get to those in the end and we'll get started with the agenda for today. So we'll start off by examining the current state of DevOps, just to give you guys an idea. And so one good starting point, I guess, would be to first see if there's a demand for it, which, as we'll see later through this presentation, is an outstanding yes, as well as a rush towards it. So we'll start off with the pay scale and explain why there's a need for this role afterwards that justifies this. So as we can see by looking at the pay scale for the US, the average DevOps engineer salary is about a little over 95K. And so if we compare this to Canada, we also see that it's actually a little bit higher at approximately 125K. So we can see that this type of career can be pretty lucrative, but why exactly is this the case? And it's also kind of somewhat a fairly new idea. So let's examine why this is the case, as well as you can become a part of it. And so that's what we'll be looking at today. So why DevOps? Let's start off by going over why there has been this shift towards DevOps and what has been driving this demand and will continue to do so over the next few years. So one good starting point, and the first thing to understand about DevOps and to understand why it's so important, is to understand the software development lifecycle. So previously in the software development lifecycle, software was created in a very linear way, where a client would go to a software developer firm, and they would construct a plan from start to finish of what the software would look like. They would do analysis, figure out what they want to have in the software, build and deploy the software, test to make sure that the software is working, and so forth, as I'm sure you guys are pretty familiar with this. So to do this, they have a few different teams. So with traditional team roles, as we can see here on the slide, you have the software development team, a quality assurance team, as well as the operations team. And these teams are separate and have distinguished roles. So the software development team would give the code to the QA people who would test it. If there's some sort of bug, they would give it back to the software development team to work on it. And then afterwards, it moves on to the operations team in the end. However, this type of system doesn't really provide the flexibility we need, especially when we have a tight deadline of a lot of updates. We want to release a lot of products, features, and so forth. And as well, as time went on, they found other few drawbacks. So these drawbacks were often that the business requirements would change during the development period of the software. So the company would get the software they had ordered and wanted, but it was no longer what they needed. So what they started to do was incorporate the client feedback in an iterative way. So this old way from planning start to finish, it would be the waterfall way, that's what they called it. And then the new method that they moved into, and that most of you guys may have recognized, that has gained a lot of popularity, is the agile-based method. So it incorporates a feedback cycle. So instead of building an entire software for a client, you build a little piece for the client, show them to see that it is going in the right direction. And then if you don't like it, you can change it. And then if you do, you can build on top of it, so that when it gets to the end of the software development process, people have a software that they do like. So going to this diagram once again, we have the software development team, people creating the software, the quality assurance people testing the software and making sure it's working correctly. And then after the software is working, it would get passed off to the operations people to monitor the environment. So we can see that with this traditional team role framework, these teams work very separately, and it's not ideal. You kind of want these teams to be a lot more integrated so that it can be very adaptive to what's going on. So to resolve this, they found that they need to collaborate. So this is where we move on to the more modern team roles. And so this is essentially what the DevOps philosophy is about. With the agile method, and this is with the iterative process we mentioned, all these three teams need to collaborate and communicate with one another in a very tight-knit way. And so to do this, we also do need someone with a skill that's unique to the market, and that skill is the DevOps. So DevOps is a completely brand new skill set that is really sought after, and traditional people don't have this skill set, and that's why a lot of companies in technology are seeing that they do need a few DevOps people at least in their team. So the new position we've seen that has been opened up is the DevOps position, and that honestly there has been a lot of tremendous demand. So with this new DevOps role, we can see that it also requires someone to wear a lot of hats. So it's also by having someone, the DevOps is someone who has a more diverse skill set, and in saying so, what we've seen is that this is also making some jobs a bit redundant, and that's because we now have one person with a lot of the relevant skills that companies are looking after. So they no longer need these segmented different roles, but they're kind of leaning towards someone with a DevOps engineering kind of role that they can cover a lot of different skill sets. So to further see the impact that DevOps has for companies, and looking at the state of DevOps, we can see that overall with traditional ops, they are 41% more time consuming overall. Traditional ops spends 21% more time putting out fires, while when we examine DevOps, DevOps spends 33% more time on infrastructure improvements. DevOps spends 60% less time handling support cases. There's 63% experience improvement in the quality of their software deployments. 63% release new software more frequently, which, as we all know, we always want updates. We want to keep up with the consumer demand, which is why a lot of companies are, of course, really leaning towards this. And then 55% notice improved cooperation and collaboration, and 38% report a higher quality of code production. So we can really see how this would be a huge, huge benefit to companies. And saying so, you may be wondering, so what kind of projects would someone in DevOps be involved with? So these types of projects can vary quite a bit, and some examples include cloud migration, disaster recovery, cloud infrastructure optimization, application orchestration, continuous integration, and deployment pipelines. And so just to go a bit into detail, just to give you guys a little bit more of a detailed description of what this would entail, we can just go through each of these just fairly quickly. So if we look at the first one, cloud migration, this is just the process of moving digital assets like data, workloads, applications, and other IT resources that are on premises to cloud infrastructure. And this is because you can have a lot of servers at your company that are expensive to maintain and need extra people to be hired to handle these servers, maintain them, and debug them. So it can cost a lot of money as well as just a lot of time. So if you move your service into a cloud service platform, so say like AWS or Amazon Web Service, a lot of this work is done for you. So this has a lot of benefits to companies where they can save time, money, effort, and essentially put that time into other business-oriented projects and goals. And the second project that you can experience to be involved with is disaster recovery. So just in a nutshell, this is if you have software running, you want to make sure that if something happens to your servers, you can boot them back up quickly. So automating these processes, what disaster recovery also is involved with. And then cloud infrastructure optimization. So people have a lot of resources in the cloud, and again, that can become very costly, especially if it's not well optimized. If it is optimized, that can save companies a huge amount of money. And then application orchestration. So this is also known as container orchestration, and it's essentially a process that automates the deployment, management, and scaling of container-based applications. We'll touch on that a little bit later with regards to container-based applications. And then lastly, we have continuous integration deployment pipelines. So as we saw in creating software, the development lifecycle has many, many steps that can become very repetitive, so also very time consuming. And so continuous integration and deployment is the automation of some of these steps. So some of these steps can become automated, which further again saves time and costs and labor. So again, this is a pattern that we're seeing. So the goal of continuous integration to establish a consistent and automated way to build, package, and test applications, while continuous delivery automates the delivery to a specific predefined infrastructure environment. So in saying so, we can see kind of another pattern emerging, and that is growing with the cloud. So, and this is like based on the different projects and so forth. So we can see that DevOps is very integrated with the cloud, and so when it is growing with the cloud, and with this transition into an agile-based method combined with this growth with the cloud, what we're seeing through trends is that, again, companies are leaning more towards DevOps, and along that, there's also, by moving on to the cloud, companies have been seeing, as we can see on the, I guess, trends over the past few years, there is a good reason why companies are shifting towards moving to the cloud like AWS. So this is a snapshot from AWS. So it shows in this table just how much money can be saved by companies moving to the cloud. We can see that if you do cloud migration, let me just see on the table, you can see that companies save 61% a year by moving your cloud infrastructure to AWS. So in looking at the cost breakdown, shifting over from on-premise to AWS, we can see that there's a drastic cost reduction. And we can also see, interestingly enough, another fact, which is the IT labor. So in IT labor, we can see that this increases by about threefold or so. And this is because if you do cloud migration, the labor cost may go up, and because there are people who are going to be doing the cloud migration itself. So for instance, the DevOps people. So we can see that in this massive cost reduction, again, why there's a trend towards companies moving towards DevOps. And in saying so, just to wrap up, there's also one other commonality, and that's with this shift towards, like I mentioned, agile-based method as well as cloud migration, and the shift towards DevOps, which is, again, a unique skill set that combines a lot of different skills that touch bases on a few different roles previously in traditional team roles. There are some jobs that are becoming at risk with cloud migration. So these are, for instance, system administrators, database administrators, production support, build engineer, QA automation, program analyst. So with this shift in the market and shifted approach in companies, we do see that there's also a shift from certain careers to shifting towards the DevOps career, as there's a huge demand for it. And in saying so, with that diverse skill set, another aspect that we should consider is exactly what kinds of tools we'll be looking at. So if you're wanting to get into DevOps, these are what the core skills are and what you can expect to learn. And the key thing to know about this is that you don't need to know all of these in full depth, but instead you have to learn how to connect all the tools together. And this is a critical point in DevOps. So to quickly go over some of these tools, some of these you guys might already be familiar with, so we'll just briefly go through them. We have Git. So Git is paramount. Git is a code hosting platform that allows people to collaborate with a team on projects and is also a version control system. Version control just meaning that you can keep track of your work, the changes you make, and so forth. Essentially just records changes so that if need be, you can go back to previous versions. Then next up, we have Linux. So everything in the cloud is Linux. It's one of the most used open source operating systems, and it runs all the servers and is essentially what we'll be working with within the DevOps role. Next up is Ansible. Ansible helps automate tasks with operation infrastructure. So once you have a large number of servers, configuring them by hand is very error-prone, very time-consuming, and Ansible simplifies this by helping you automate configuration. Then we have Terraform and AWS. So AWS, I'm sure a lot of you guys have already heard of it. It's just the main cloud provider. And then Terraform is designed to provision the server and infrastructure. Terraform is the go-to tool for infrastructure as code. Essentially, it allows you to codify your infrastructure by describing a specific end state. Terraform then creates a plan to reach that end state and provision the software. Then we have Docker and Kubernetes, which are used for deploying cloud-native applications. So this just involves creating applications into units called Docker containers, and then being able to orchestrate those containers with Kubernetes. So containers are just isolated units of software that can run in various different environments. So when you guys get into DevOps, you'll learn a lot more about that. And so essentially, just if you're doing microservice application deployment, then Docker and Kubernetes are definitely needed. And then Python. So Python is just the most popular language in DevOps, very easy to learn, and knowing it can go a long way. Jenkins is used to build and deploy code faster with less errors. It's also used for CI/CD pipelines, which we covered just a bit before. Then we have Grafana and ELK, which ensures operations are running smoothly. Grafana is just used for running data analytics, monitoring apps, that sort of thing, while ELK collects and processes data from various data sources and stores that data in one centralized data store that can then scale as the data grows. So to wrap up, I know that's a lot to take in. You guys may have a bit of experience in a few of these, maybe a lot of these. But just to wrap up for the DevOps role, one thing to know is that knowing these tools one at a time is not really enough. The key is really ensuring you know how to use these tools altogether. So you don't have to be a master of all these skills, but rather a jack of all trades with these skills. So rather than just learning these tools, you want to also learn how to apply them. And one key area where you can learn and leverage these tools to apply them in the workforce is by doing a lot of commercial grade projects. So this is done by engaging in active learning and putting what you're learning into effect. So again, just because this is a lot of content to know, really making sure that you can transfer that knowledge after learning it and being able to apply them, that's kind of what signals to employers and so forth that you know what you're doing. Okay, and then moving on, we did have a demo set up by Kunal. Let me just make sure that he's just in the chat so I can shift it on over to him. I think he may be joining us, just one moment.
Hello, Anna.
Okay, perfect. So
Hello.
we'll move on to our prepared demo. This will just show you how to leverage some of these tools. So on to Kunal, I'll pass it over to you so you can take the lead.
Hello. Hello, Anna. Just carry on the slides. I will just set up this system.
Okay, not a problem.
Yeah.
Perfect. So it'll just be one moment, guys. So we can touch on
Hello.
one question. We did.
Hello, Anna.
Kunal,
Just carry on. Yeah, just carry on with the slides. I will just set up the system.
Okay, not a problem.
Just carry on. Yeah.
Sure thing. So Daniel, we'll just head on to you. I see you do have a question in the chat. So you're asking us, so if I know some of these products, would there be easier for me to become a DevOps engineer? So going just back to, I guess we can just go back to the slides. Great question. So yes, definitely knowing a lot of these tools will help you make it easier to become a DevOps engineer, just because within the DevOps, it's really more so about knowing how to integrate and being able to touch on a lot of these different tools. So the more you know, the more tools you know, of course, the better. But one other key aspect that will make it easier to become a DevOps engineer is, of course, having that background that you gain through experience. So I know that sometimes it can be a bit difficult just to gain that experience because on some resumes, they do ask you for, I don't know, years plus of experience, which you gain experience through internships and so forth. But really being able to work on those projects will be able to help you, I guess, become a DevOps engineer a little more easily. So it's kind of the combined effort of being able to learn all of these skills and then being able to then show employers that you can apply them skills in different projects. So I hope that answers that question a little bit. Let me know if you need clarification or if that was all right. But yeah, but along with these, it's kind of just like a learning process within the DevOps too, just because a lot of I guess a lot of what you know is done through experience. So the two could just go very hand in hand together. And while Kunal is setting up, does anybody else have any questions? We can just take some up right now as well. Okay, so great question, Alex. So with all of this training, well, we'll get to this a bit afterwards. We'll get to this after the demo, in which case I'll explain it in full depth. But just to go a bit into it right now, I'd say, so with regards to the program that we do offer, our approach is to make sure that you do have, that it's all from start to finish. So you are able to train with pre-recording. Kunal?
Hello, carry on. Yeah.
Okay, sorry, Alex, just pause on that. I'll cover all the material and then if there's needs to be any clarification, I'll get back to your question. So we'll just move on to the demo just for now. Just hit a pause on the questions, but great questions. Thank you so much, guys. Okay. Okay, great. Kunal, on to you.
Hello, Anna. Can you? Is it audible to you?
Yes, you are good to go.
Yeah. Can you finish the slides so that I will continue in the later?
Sure. Did you want to do the demo at the end of the presentation?
Yeah. Yes. Yeah.
Okay, perfect. Perfect. Sounds good. Okay, so in saying that, I guess we will move on to how you can become a DevOps engineer. So that kind of brings in the question that we had from Alex. Okay, so let me just move on to the slides. Okay, so you may be wondering, like you guys are, how to get into the role of becoming a DevOps engineer, exactly what this involves. This is what we'll, I guess, move on to next. So some key points to know in advance is that, as you guys may be aware, there is an abundance of DevOps jobs, as we explained, but it is difficult to find people that can really use all the required tools. So as we saw, there is just a plethora of different tools you need to learn how to operate just so that you can aptly be able to apply them in different projects. And another thing is that companies are often looking for people with 7+ years of experience. So in saying so, how can you overcome this? And this is kind of where we'll lead to our program description. And so in saying so, there's also a few different starting positions that you guys might find yourselves in. The first one is you may have programming skills, but not much experience. So there might be that gap between having the knowledge, but not experience to really get into the workforce. So maybe you have a CS degree, you don't have a CS degree, but a STEM background. Then next is people who are experienced, but they want to transition into DevOps. So this can be a group like sysadmins, developers who want to learn more operations and just more of the role of DevOps. And then the last category are total beginners. So these are people who are outside of technology and working in a business or a different area, but they really want to get into this field. So as we can see, there are a lot of different starting positions. You guys may fall into one of these categories, maybe a different category we haven't mentioned. And so to address these concerns from the previous slide with the experience required, as well as the different starting positions, we've created a program. So it's the Flex Dev Career Ignite program, or as you guys are more familiar with, it's known as the Journey to Cloud/DevOps Engineer program. So with this program, we've been doing it for quite a bit. We have a few different great testimonials, and we've helped break people into DevOps and clouds. DevOps and cloud. So these are some of the reviews that we've had, some testimonials from people who have done our boot camp. So we've had quite a few different students. And so essentially, with regards to the program design, our program helps people learn all of these skills that we previously mentioned, so all the Ansible, Jenkins, Kubernetes, Dockers, and so forth, and to be able to complete projects. So essentially, our company has an excess supply of DevOps contracts. So within our program, you will learn the necessary skills to work on these contracts. And if you complete the program, you will get a job. And so essentially what we're looking at is that we do have a lot of excess supply of contracts. And the way that we help bridge you in this gap to really gain experience is by first teaching you the necessary skills and then getting you to work hands-on on specific projects. And then afterwards, after getting that experience that you might, there might be a bit of a gap in, you can then find placements a lot more easily. And we help you throughout this entire process. So training, mentoring, working on the projects, as well as finding you the placement. So resume building, interview prep, everything. So it's honestly like the full package. So essentially we focus on getting you to work on projects that will show employers that you not only have learned the skills, but have been able to already skillfully apply them in actual projects. And so, like I said, these projects just involve getting you to work on DevOps contracts, which are really great working experiences that you can put on your resume, especially for people who may be new to the field. And so the way that we do this is we have 2 paths embedded within the program. So we have active learning path number 1 and then active learning path number 2. And active learning, again, just in the sense that we give you projects to work on and apply the knowledge you've gained. So we start you off with projects, build things up until you're very able and can apply skills for larger projects. So just to go through this slide, with active learning path 1, we start you off with making sure you understand Python fundamentals. You work on a Python project, move on to learning Linux, Linux projects, IT Foundation, Linux automation project, and so on and so forth through AWS and cloud automation. And by learning these key skills, then you are, more qualified, or better able to land a role in, say, junior DevOps Cloud Ops. However, in moving on to the next slide with active learning path 2, this builds on everything that you're learning in active learning path 1. And so after getting the DevOps fundamentals, you then transition to learning monitoring. You are able to carry out a monitoring project, move on to Ansible, Docker and Kubernetes, modern tech stack, and Cloud Zero apps. So with all of this being said, there's a lot of active learning within this, and it's very hands-on. And hands-on in the sense that within the program, while you're learning all of this, it does consist of pre-recording modules and content. However, after learning through the videos and so forth, we do give you a project, and we also have mentors who are live and they help you. For instance, say you have an issue with the assignment, or live Q&A sessions that they can help you out with, and there's a lot of contact. So it's very hands-on in that source. So you do have a mentor, I guess, in the program to really help you, really make sure that you're engaging in the projects. So that's just a bit of that in a nutshell. We'll get a little bit more detail afterwards, just in a couple slides. But just to wrap up, so for new people, like we saw through the first 2 active learning paths, I guess if you're fairly new, what you can do is land that junior cloud job position. And then if you're very intensive and you keep carrying on, you can land that senior DevOps position. Again, just because people start in various different positions. So you might have more knowledge, or you might be fairly new. So it kind of just depends on the person. But essentially the end goal is to get you that DevOps position that you guys are looking after. And also another thing is with all of these skills, just because there are a lot of different tools that you'll be learning, you can also go after a lot of different jobs. So these skills can go into a wide range of jobs that I guess cover various criteria. So the projects that we give you aren't just going to be best for DevOps engineer, but also good and appealing for a wide range of careers. So it is transferable. So you can get into software development, system engineer, developer, architecture, data engineer, QA. The list just goes on and on. And then another key point to touch up on is, because we keep mentioning that experience is vital, active learning is really vital. And so a common question that we get is whether or not someone needs a CS degree to get into the field. So one thing that we found is that having the degree, like a CS degree, is not always what matters. It of course helps, but a lot of it is how you can signal to employers that you can really bring value to their team that matters. So this is the skill sets that you build up. And so if you look at this posting, what you can see is that you might have a CS degree, you might not. That's not what we're looking for. It's essentially just that they do ask for a lot of experience as well. So that's kind of what companies are also after. So this is just one example we found in which people would rather see that you can bring value than necessarily the degree that you do have. But again, it always helps. And then with regards to placement strategy results, just because I did mention that this is the full package with regards to training, mentorship, working through live projects and so forth, and then landing the job. With regards to placement strategy results after completing the program, just to gain a sense, we have placements for students within 3 months at 79% of students are placed within the 3 months. 91% of placement within 6 months for students, and placement within 1 year is all students, but these stats have actually increased. And this is because we have that phase-wise approach. So with our program, we have the active learning phase, the internship phase, and the placement phase. So this is just to kind of summarize what I've been talking about throughout the webinar. So with the active learning phase, with this phase, we're just giving you enough knowledge to start building things. So in this phase, what you can expect is videos that are pre-recorded. You go through the content, you learn it, and then we can give you assignments and so forth. There are daily Q&A, many videos to learn from. And along the way, if you need help and get stuck, we're always there to help you and guide you with our mentors. And so with that being said, with the daily Q&As, there's also video Zoom calls that you can go on to that really help solidify everything that you're learning. You can talk with our mentors. We have really great instructors, Sonu and Nicholas, that will be there to guide you. And then what you'll also find again is that in this program, what you'll see is that you're applying everything that you're learning, which really helps you solidify what you learn and become a true developer. And then moving on to the internship phase. At the start, this is an unpaid internship just so that we can see you work on various different projects. So this is kind of we get you to work on like contracts and so forth. And so this can help you with your resume, and we can also give you a reference and so forth, which also, of course, stands out to employers. And this is because we can see what you're capable of. And then when Be Cloud Ready gets full paid contract work, which we have fairly often, we can also push you on those contracts as a junior position, in which case it is a paid internship. And then lastly, after the active learning phase, where you get the foundations, work on projects, develop your skills, are able to gain that experience through the internship phase, we move on to the placement phase. And this is where we focus on placing you at that job. So with Shandon being deeply involved in the industry, he knows what makes candidates stand out as applicants to employers. He's hired a lot of people, so he knows the skill sets that signal to employers what will get you into the interview and then land you the job. So we help you with everything from resume building, preparing for interviews, and securing your job, or making you also sure that you are secure in that job too. And so within this program, we have two versions. We have Program A as well as Program B, and this is depending on the starting point that you're at. So we've set up the program so that it can apply to absolute beginners, to people who are very experienced and want to scale up a little bit. So within Program A, this is for people who are a bit more experienced and does involve the technical screening and interview. So you just need to make sure that you're familiar with some of the skills, such as like Python and coding and so forth. And it's meant for people with STEM and who have maybe an analytical background. They have a bit of technical ability, coding ability, and so forth. And so within this Program A, it is about 3 months you can do it part-time. It's 30 hours of self-paced videos, a learning path that covers the most in-demand technologies, so covers the tools that we mentioned before in full depth. There's daily Scrum, Q&A videos. If you guys get stuck, we have mentors that help you out, and that's parts live, of course. And then the internship starts as soon as the student is ready. And then afterwards, with the placement phase, there's resume coaching and mock interviews, and then, of course, placement upon finishing the program. So with this, again, start to finish, we cover every single base. And then with regards to the Program B, this one is open to anyone. So this program is for complete beginners and for, say, people who haven't coded before. And so this one is, of course, a bit longer just because we do need to get you a little bit up to speed. So it's 6 months part-time, and it covers the same things as the Program A. It's just a different starting point. So self-paced videos, Q&A sessions, and so forth. We have your mentors, internships, placements, and so forth. And then just a bit of background into post-training. We have resume building, targeted job search, interview preparation, retraining, and project work. And then what you can expect in the program components are self-paced videos, Slack channel support, live classroom series, one-on-one mentoring, internship projects, as well as placement services. So these are all included. And then with regards to the cost for the advanced DevOps program, the costs are the same for Program A, Program B. The advanced is Program A. So it is $1,000 per month for 3 months of training. You complete the program, we get you to work on contracts as well as help place you. And then the beginner's cost is the same cost, $1,000, but it is 6 months. And it includes the same process and is open to everybody. And then, of course, there is a refund policy. You can work away for the first week. If you're not into the program, that's all right. You can you have first week money back guarantee. Okay, so we'll check in with Kunal and see if he's okay, and then we can see with the demo and then move on to questions.
Yes, Anami. Hello.
Kunal, are you okay?
Yeah, you can.
Okay, to go. Perfect. Okay, so
Yeah.
I'll just move on back to the slides then. Okay,
Yeah.
perfect. All right, so we'll just be doing a demo. So Kunal, this will be up to you. Kunal is a DevOps engineer, so he'll just be showing you guys a bit of what you can expect when you're working in DevOps.
Thank you, Anna. Okay, hello everyone. So I will walk you through the demo of how to install WordPress using a single click. So this is the architecture where we have a local system on which we are running the Ansible. And through Ansible script, we're going to deploy an EC2 instance on which we are running the WordPress. So this is what we are going to deploy in today's demo. So we have a local system, and on the local system, we have Ansible installed, and we are going to connect through Ansible to the AWS cloud. So AWS is nothing but the Amazon Web Service. Okay, and Amazon EC2. EC2 is nothing but the virtual machine, okay, and and on which we are going to install WordPress. So WordPress is nothing but it is a content management system. So most of the websites are built using WordPress. And Ansible. Ansible is nothing but it is a configuration management tool, or we can say it is automation tool where we can configure or install packages on remote servers using single master node. So let us see the deployment of WordPress on EC2. So share the screen. So right now I am on the master machine. So in this master machine, I have installed Ansible, all the required packages to deploy the WordPress installation. So I have the script in this. So I have the Ansible script that is deploy and WordPress.ml. So issue the command that is Ansible playbook and the script name that is deploy .yaml. So the Ansible script is written in YAML format. So we have the extension for that YML. So we are going to issue a command in Ansible. So Ansible playbook deploy WordPress. So before that, I want to show the code, what exactly it is doing. So this is what we have the code for the deployment. So first it will create the EC2 instance. So we have the script for this. So we have to launch EC2 instance, or we can say it is a virtual machine on which we are going to deploy the WordPress. Okay. So after that, after launching the EC2 instance, we'll get the its DNS name, or we can get also the IP address for that. And then we are going to install all the stuff which is required for WordPress installation using the roles. So roles, we have the roles in the different directory that is .main.ml. So this is going to run the script for us after issuing the command. So this is a script to run the WordPress installation. So main thing is, first we are going to launch the EC2 instance. Then it will going to deploy all the packages which is required to install the WordPress installation. So let us issue the command. So let us issue the command Ansible-playbook deploy WordPress.m. So it's running. So till then, you can see in my AWS EC2 dashboard, it is only one script is running right now, which is the master node. So after in the script, when the script completed, you can see that one more machine will get running in this EC2 dashboard on which we have the WordPress information. So you can see it is running. So within few minutes installed. So now it's still installing the WordPress. So we can see that it is installed successfully. So we can take this DNS name and you can copy this DNS and you can paste in the browser. Check whether it is running or not. So just I will take that DNS name. So you can see this is the output of WordPress. So you can configure this WordPress installation. So I can give anything, the name, admin. So you can give password for this. Then install WordPress. Login. So see, this is how we can install the WordPress using Ansible using single click. Just use the command like Ansible and the script name, Ansible playbook, the script name. So this is about the demo. If you have any questions, you can ask me about it.
Okay, perfect. I'm just going to get back on my screen. Since we already went through the program, I guess we can go on to the Q&A. Let me just move on to the slide and catch us back up, just so that we can quickly finish off this webinar, just because I don't want to take more of your guys' time up, just because I'm sure you guys are busy with work and everything. Okay. So in the chat, just so you guys have a bit of information, I will be posting the link that we have on the screen. So this just kind of covers the course content that we have in full depth, just so you guys can get an understanding of the course curriculum. So we can move on to the questions. So let's just go from the chat first. Okay, so we'll move on back to Alex. So to answer I covered this a little bit, but just to make sure that I cover it in detail, the question is, are all pre-recorded training, or is it live training? Trying to see the value of the course bootcamp versus taking a Udemy video course for less. Okay, so just to, I guess, abbreviate a little bit on what we talked about. So some of the course content, that portion is pre-recorded, I guess, in a similar sense of the Udemy course, but the training is live training. So we do give you actual live contracts that you can work on, and then we help you work on those with mentors. So for instance, with Sonu, Nicholas, I believe we also get some, Shannon also helps out with this. So that is live training. And then of course, integrated within that is the placement. And then one other key thing to keep in mind is that with this program, it is self-paced, because the 3 months to 6 months, that's based on the part-time schedule. It might take you shorter, it might take you longer, probably shorter, I would assume. There's one person who did take the boot camp, and he was able to finish the boot camp, I think it was within a couple of weeks. So he finished all of the course content. He did have a bit of a background, but he was working on contracts like very shortly. So it's kind of like what you put in is what you get out. And then let me see to the next question. Hopefully that answers your question, Alex. A great question. Then moving on to Daniel, are there job vacancy opportunities to get hands-on for these technologies, or do you have to go through the long course? Again, so with this, the goal is to get you through the course and going through the content, just to make sure that we have all the tools covered, and then we do get you to working on these projects hands-on. And then we also do have a lot of connections with different recruiters, and so we do access those connections and help you get those jobs. Okay, the next question is, can I learn Golang instead of Python? We do see that Python is the main language that we do use. I can see if we can get an exception from Shandon, but we do lean towards Python just because it is very widely used across the industry. But yeah, if you'd like, you can shoot me an email. My contact is on the screen. So it's anna.p@beatcloudready.com. Also just put it in here just so that it's easier to access in the chat. Just one moment. Okay, so I just put my email in the chat for you guys. And then in the active learning, is there only option to work on AWS, or is there an option to work on Azure itself, or Azure, I mean? So within the program, it is more heavily based on AWS. I'm not sure if they updated it, but I don't believe there is too much course content on Azure. It's mostly AWS. But we can always, when you're working on the projects, if you are interested in working on Azure, you can always message Shandon, Sonia, or Nicholas, and we can see if there is something with Azure that you can work on. Because I do know that I think we do work on some contracts that do involve it, so you can get experience possibly in that way. But I'd have to double check on that. And are there any other questions from you guys? Just because I think we covered some of the questions. Perfect. Okay, so we can stick around for just a couple more minutes. We can see if anybody has any last minute questions. But that would essentially conclude the webinar for today. If there were any sorts of audio technical difficulties, just because I did see that there may have been with one of our participants, feel free to contact me. We do also have a pre-recorded webinar that you guys can go over again if you like, if it covers essentially the same details, but just for, I guess, a review, if you guys are a bit more curious and want to look into it. And then, of course, we have the website on the screen that will show you the full course details in depth. And then if you guys are interested, if you're interested or do you have questions or concerns about the program and you'd like to contact me privately, my contact information is on the screen as well as in the chat. I would be very happy to chat with you guys and just chat more about the course, kind of what direction you guys are thinking, and see if we can help you guys get there. Okay, so I guess that concludes our webinar. Thank you everyone so much for coming out. I hope this helped you guys learn a bit about DevOps, as well as kind of the way that you guys can get in there and the opportunity that there really is within the field. So again, you guys can register anytime you'd like. You can feel free to ask us any questions anytime you like. We are always very happy to chat and get to know more about your guys' goals and kind of where you're heading. So thank you so much for everyone for coming out.